When in doubt, advocate violence. Much of the time, people will even advocate a forcibly imposed authoritarian plan simply because they are not sure what would happen if they did not, or are not sure how something would be accomplished if people were left in freedom. For example, if someone has a hard time picturing how a completely private road system would function, he will usually advocate a government plan funded by coercion. If he is not sure how well free people could defend themselves without a standing army, he will likely advocate an authoritarian military solution funded by coercive taxation. Those who believe in government advocate violence by default. All it takes is a little uncertainty and ignorance to cause the average person to advocate a coercive government plan for just about anything. It is not how people behave in their day-to-day lives. The average person does not go around initiating violence against everyone he meets because he is not sure that everyone he meets will otherwise behave improperly and make the right decisions. But that is precisely what most statists do via government. They advocate the widespread forcible control of millions of human beings simply because they are not entirely sure that people, left in freedom, will spend money the way they should, treat others the way they should, find peaceful, effective solutions to problems, etc. By way of the superstition of authority, statists can comfortably advocate that violent subjugation of their neighbors simply because they are not quite sure how their neighbors would otherwise behave. And those who crave power exploit that fact to their advantage. All the politician needs to do in order to get support for an authoritarian power grab is tell the public things might not work very well if he left people in freedom. He does not even need to wait until until someone actually does something dishonest or malicious or negligent or otherwise destructive. All he has to do is suggest the possibility that if the people are left in freedom, bad things might happen. Because the advocates of government violence do not recognize law as violence, the threshold at which they will support an authoritarian coerced solution is very low. Those who crave power can simply suggest that some plan might help someone somewhere, and many people will condone legal violence based upon that premise alone. A lot of government violence is based upon guesses about what might happen as a result of what people might do. For example, much of the state coercion done in the name of environmentalism is based upon the idea that the state must forcibly control the choices of everyone because otherwise people might make choices that contribute to global warming, the end of the rainforest, the extinction of animals, and so on. Few people acting on their own would commit aggression based upon guesses about possible indirect consequences of the non-malicious, non-violent actions of others. Yet, that is commonplace in government policy. As another example of advocating government violence by default, consider the practice of forcibly preventing foreigners from setting foot anywhere in the entire country without the written permission of the ruling class of that country. Such immigration laws create something akin to the war mentality, where an entire demographic category of people is criminalized and demonized, and subjugated to acts of aggression based upon concerns about what some of those people might do. People opine that many illegals are criminals or come into the country just to receive benefits. Regardless of how often such allegations are accurate, the result is that all illegals, anyone who is in the country without the permission of the politicians, are forcibly controlled. This is the result of pack mentality, guilt by association. It should go without saying that using violence against one person because he is not of the same race or from the same country or in some other way similar to someone else who has actually caused harm is utterly unjustified. Of note, the attempts by government to quell illegal immigration also result in aggression being perpetrated against many legal residents, as well as the illegals, at border patrol checkpoints, many of which are not even at the borders. To stop and question everyone driving down a road because someone might be there illegally is precisely the kind of unjustified aggression commonly committed by government agents and rarely committed by anyone else. This violence by default can also be seen in the intrusive searches and interrogations for anyone who wants to attempt to fly on a plane in the land of the free. For the owner of a plane to put conditions on anyone who wants to ride in his plane, and this would also apply to a train, a car, or anything else, is very different from a third party forcibly preventing anyone from riding on that plane anywhere in the entire country unless the would-be passengers first subject themselves to questioning, searches of their luggage, and even strip searches of themselves by the agents of the third party. People would never tolerate any private individual behaving this way, with the attitude of, I'd better force my will on everyone just in case. But for agents of authority, the tactic is commonplace, and people imagine it to be legitimate. In fact, they often demand that authority do such things. In their day-to-day lives, nonviolence is the default type of behavior for most people. While there are occasional physical conflicts, most people go to great lengths to avoid them, not only by trying to start a fight, but also by trying to diffuse tense situations. Even when a fight does occur, both sides usually end up walking away. Each day, billions of people find ways to peacefully coexist, even when they have significantly different viewpoints, beliefs, and attitudes. But that is in their personal lives. When it comes to politics, violence is the default. Every voter, to one extent or another, seeks to have his own views and ideas forcibly inflicted upon everyone else through the mechanism of government. The default is not to let others do their own thing or to try to get along peacefully. The default is to advocate aggression against absolutely everyone by way of the authoritarian coercion called law. This is a mind-boggling, huge disconnect between what the average person views as civilized behavior on an individual basis and what he views as legitimate and civilized when it comes to the actions of authority. It is difficult to imagine anyone behaving in his personal life the way voters would behave when it comes to politics, but such a person would constantly be robbing other friends and strangers alike of huge sums of money to fund things he deems important, as well as using threats, physical force, and even kidnapping to coerce others into making whatever decisions he thinks would be best for his victims or for society in general. In short, anyone who acted in his private life the way all statists act in the political arena would be immediately recognized as a thug, a thief, and a lunatic. But doing exactly the same thing via government, advocating mass extortion and thuggery, is accepted by most as something that normal, civilized people should do. In fact, they sometimes refer to voting as a duty, as if it is actually immoral not to advocate the coercive controlling of one's neighbors. Amazingly and ironically, the only people who do not advocate constant widespread violence and coercion via government, anarchists and voluntarists, are usually viewed by the majority as being weird, uncivilized, and dangerous.